As you might remember from the last episode from Cambodia, we decided to go to Hong Kong. First of all, it was to get the visa to China. And I was here before and I really enjoyed my time here. Hong Kong is an amazing city. And Clara, my daughter, well, she's never been here, so I didn't have a hard time persuading her. And also there was the thing about, hey, there's a Disneyland.
It's a small world after all.
No, anything but that.
But since I've already been here and done an episode from Hong Kong, I decided to leave the microphones at the hostel and take a sort of break from recording everything.
Meet Palle Bo, a digital nomad from Denmark on an epic journey around the world. At the age of 50, he made a bold decision. He sold everything, his house, his car, his furniture, and set out with a quest to visit every single country in the world, documenting everything along the way. This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
But I do have a few things to share here from Hong Kong. Before I get to that, let me just mention that this episode is brought to you in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that searches all the major travel sites to find you the best deals on hotels and hostels around the world. You don't need to spend a lot of time searching 15 different sites. Hotels25.com does that for you. In order to get into mainland China, we need to have a visa. And here in Hong Kong, there are different agencies that can help do that in a few days. But to make sure that we got it before we're at the airport traveling into China, we decided to stay a week here. Do you remember the last episode here from Hong Kong? I was living at an Airbnb just across the street from the legendary Chungking Mansions. It's a place with a market and a ton of small budget hotels and hostels. And this time we decided to stay at one of those hostels. We got a room. It was small. No, in fact, it was tiny. But we had our own room. We didn't have to be in a dorm room. We got our own room. And it was both cheap and fine. The biggest challenge was the elevator going up to the 8th floor, because it was very small and a lot of people needed to get on that elevator all the time. So we always had to wait a long time to get on it. Another thing that was quite a bit of a challenge was every time we entered the building and walked those 30 yards to the elevator, we were stopped so many times by people wanting to sell suits and watches and food and local SIM cards. There was a couple of Indian guys, and for the first 3 days, 4 or 5 times a day, every time I entered the building, they would come up to me and said, "You want to buy a SIM card?" And I said, no, every single time. And then after a few days, I stopped and said, "Listen, guys, you ask me this all the time. Please look at this face. Bald guy with glasses. I do not want to buy a SIM card. I am fully covered. I don't need it. Remember this face and think, no SIM card." And they laughed and said, "Absolutely." And it worked. Every time I passed them, they were about to ask me and then just looked at me and said, no, bald guy, no SIM card. At one point, they were so close to asking me, and I said, and pointed at my face. So that's a method I can highly recommend if you're passing the same people every day. Tell them you're not interested. Here in Hong Kong, we also met the wonderful Canadian couple, Carol Lou and Mitchell, the world's first digital nomads. They were here in Hong Kong. It is a small world.
It's a small world after all.
So we were hanging out with them a few days, and then of course we went to Disneyland. Yeah, both Clara and I, we are like children when it comes to Disneyland. We've been going to Disneyland Paris a bunch of times, and this one in Hong Kong is very much like the one in Paris, only it's newer and slightly smaller. But we had a great day. We went on the metro out there, a special train with windows shaped like Mickey Mouse, and we stayed all the way to the end to see the amazing fireworks. A wonderful day in Hong Kong.
Thank you for joining us for Disney in the Stars. Have a magical day.
We also took a trip up to the Peak. That's the highest point on Hong Kong Island, where you have a great view of the city. I didn't do that the last time, so I'm actually very, very glad that I came back in order to go to the Peak in Hong Kong. You must go there when you get a chance to go to Hong Kong. And then I was invited to be a guest on Phil Whelan's show on Radio 3.
Good afternoon, it's 10 minutes past 12. Right, let's talk about somebody else who's on a journey. So, you know, sometimes in life, some people go on the Camino, some people go camping, some just go to the beach. My next guest is a super-duper radio guy who's going around the world checking out radio stations. Among other things, Danish broadcaster Palebo. How are you? Good to see you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Bill.
It's not strictly going around chasing radio stations, is it? But
no, but that is my passion. I've been doing radio for 30 some years, and I really enjoy it every day. And I just travel to every single country in the world. That's just what I do.
I mean, you know, joking aside, it's obviously a personal journey. You're like, right, off we go, we'll see what happens. And on the way, you meet broadcasters. Yeah. And the cool thing is, it's the only time in your life nobody's going to buy you a drink. Serious question, though. Are we back as an industry? Have we never been away as an industry? You know, all that hoo-ha in the 90s about how digital, this, that and the other, radio will... Well, it hasn't happened.
We have never been away, Phil. Never. And radio will still be around in my lifetime. I'm absolutely sure of it.
It's just how people listen these days. I think I'm really glad we have smartphones and apps now, because people can listen to us.
Yeah. I was listening to you on my way here on the train, and it's even underground it works.
Well, it's great here. It's really good here. Because radio is a culture. I mean, I don't want to get into this radio anorak thing. I want to hear about your journey. But it's a culture. It's something like when you're a kid, your mum might have had a radio in the kitchen, and you remember a certain program at a certain time. And I think it's the one thing, maybe more than television, that we remember as children.
Well, I remember in the 90s at radio conferences, people were talking about, there's a panic because teenagers, they hate radio. And no. Well, they might, but they'll be listening, and Spotify didn't kill it, and all the other things.
Spotify helps it.
Yeah,
I think
so.
I think what that was very much people who were at the very beginning days of pay TV or you know, selective TV you dip in and out of. In the 90s, they got really excited about it. This is the way forward. Everything else is going to go by the wayside. So it's almost like they wanted radio to take 5.
Yeah, exactly.
But it hasn't happened that way.
No.
Which is great. When you're not travelling, what do you do? What's your sort of daily thing?
Well, it still is my daily thing. I have a small radio production company, and I produce Danish radio commercials of all things. And I found out that
I don't know why, but that sounds fun.
Yeah, it does.
But in Denmark, it's
nu den nye plade fra. I found out that I can do that anywhere. I can come up with ideas, and I can write the copy. And then I get the actors into a studio back in Copenhagen, and direct over Skype, and get all the recordings and do my editing on my laptop. So
this is something that you can share with our listeners, because I get to talk to a lot of young bands. They're brilliant. We really are in the age now where people say, make it in my bedroom. Well, it's
absolutely.
It almost is. I mean, for instance, the iPhone, one of my favourite toys, is a super duper microphone, let's just say from an Australian company. and it's just amazing. And I can put it onto my iPhone, and really top-end recordings.
Absolutely.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Whenever I do a voiceover myself, I sit in the middle of the bed with the duvet over my head and the text on my iPad. So and then I brought a good microphone and some recording gear. So yeah.
People always talk about this duvet over the head thing, but it actually is true. Can you try and tell us how you would, set it up? Blankets, duvets, what would we use? Because loads of people want to know these little tips about recording your own shtick.
If it's you need a bit of room. You made the impression of playing a guitar. I don't know if that would work.
No, I've just got a thing with my
yeah. No, I try to make a room under there and a tent, and it looks ridiculous, and in some countries it is
look around.
It does look ridiculous in here as well. No, in some countries it's been very, very warm because I do a podcast about my travel and
what's it called?
The Radio Vagabond.
The Radio Vagabond. Now I know have been to such places as Iran. Give me a list of some of the other places you've been to.
Yeah, Iran, Iraq, but that was before this journey.
Still,
I was in Iraq with an organization that helps media where freedom of speech is a problem, and we were in Suleimania in Kurdistan just before ISIS came, and I was helping them set up a radio station there, and it was amazing.
I think countries like this, people are interested in finding out about what kind of podcast material did you pick up when you were doing that first bit of your trip? I mean, what kind of topics did you tackle?
Mainly my podcast is about my journey and the cultures and the people I meet. So I try to immerse as much as I can in the culture. My podcast is not about radio. I might mention it, but it's about my journey. And then food, and different sites and surprises and my prejudice. I'm just doing at the moment my podcast from Pattaya in Thailand, and I have so much imaginations about what that place is like, and I get some of my prejudice and imaginations confirmed, but then I see some truly amazing stuff as well. I went to visit an orphanage and spent a long time talking to an English guy there who's helping the poor kids.
See, that's a good story. I think. I mean, I don't mean that in a cheesy way, but it's a good thing to listen to. It's a story of lives, and I think people would really dig that. I know what you'd heard about Pattaya, and mostly it's true.
Yeah.
The Radio Vagabond. This is fantastic. How many have you got in the bag so far of these podcasts? Quite a few, I would imagine.
Yeah, I got 50 plus in my Danish feed, and I think 30 in my English feed.
Is the Hong Kong one out yet?
The Hong Kong was out a month ago because from my trip here in November.
Yeah.
So that is out here.
How might you change it if you were to do it again?
I tell you what, because when I was here, it was when the whole thing with the two young legislators.
Yes, right.
And there was a demonstration.
Nearly legislators.
And I didn't get the full picture.
Yeah.
I thought they were only doing something good, but I see there's a flip side now, and I wish I could change that. I can, but I wish
it's, since I last spoke to you, X, Y, and Z, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that one of your sites is called Radio Guru. Is that your production stuff?
That's my production company, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll be calling you.
So now we're finally in China, the real China that is. We're in Jiangsu, which is very close to Shanghai and Ningbo, where we're staying right now. And we're in a village called Jiangsu, and strolling around this beautiful garden that is right here. It's the humble administrator's garden, and I feel that this is the real China that we're finally in. I've been to Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and that's not the real China to me. This is the real China, and we're going to spend 16 fantastic days here in this country. We're spending the first 4, 5, 6 days here in this area, and then it was the plan to go to Xi'an to see the terracotta warriors and that whole amazing exhibition they have. But partly because it's a bit out of the way, and partly because it's cold and we're only carrying a lot of summer clothes. But the main thing is that we're a bit short of time, and we want to spend at least a week in Beijing, because there's so much to see in Beijing. And that probably means that we'll have to do Xi'an at a later date. But now we're here, and I want to see some more of this humble administrator's garden. This recording was done on our first day in the People's Republic of China, in a small town called Jiangsu, a bit north of where we were staying. We've been offered a room with some very close friends from Denmark who now lives here, Dorte and Jesper. And this day in Jiangsu, Jesper was going to a business meeting, and we drove along and went for a walk in this village and this park while he was at the meeting. The city that we are living in is a smaller Chinese town. You probably never heard of it. It's called Ningbo. Am I right? Just a small Chinese city with 8 million people. Dorte and Jesper moved here 10 years ago with their 2 daughters, Lærke and Alberte, because Jesper got the job to start a factory that produces loudspeakers. It's a company within the group of Dali speakers in Denmark. High quality speakers. And yeah, like I say, it is a small village here in China. According to Jesper, Ningbo has been doubled in size in the 10 years they've been here. It was 4 million when they moved in, but they are building like crazy here. Giant buildings shoot up almost every single day, and they're building roads to accommodate the many people that move here all the time. It's a modern and clean city, and almost everything looks new. It's got a bit of the same feel as Dubai in terms of it's been built so recently. Even though Ningbo is quite big, it's small compared to the city a little bit north of here, Shanghai. It's about 135 miles from downtown Ningbo to downtown Shanghai, and a recently built 18-mile-long bridge has connected the two cities and cut at least an hour of the driving time between the two. One of the most obvious differences between Ningbo and Shanghai is that there are very few foreigners in Ningbo. And in Shanghai, it's said that around 250,000 foreigners live here, and another around 200,000 is visiting on a regular basis to work here. And then, of course, many more tourists here. So when we walked around downtown Shanghai, we saw a lot of Western-looking people, and that was very much not the case in Ningbo. In Shanghai, we found a hotel, of course on hotels25.com, called Wisdom Hotel Shanghai, and we lived on the 10th floor in room 1006. We only spent 2 nights here, so we had 1 full day to explore Shanghai, and we spent most of the day walking around downtown. We went to the river at a place called the Bund. It's close to the old part of Shanghai, and it's got a great view to the iconic skyline of Shanghai. We also went on a special small trip across the river. It was in a cart that in 5 minutes were transporting us to the other side with flashing lights and music. Then we took the high-speed bullet train from Shanghai to Beijing, where we found an apartment on Airbnb. And funny enough, that was also on the 10th floor, in apartment 1006. Even the Wi-Fi here had the same name. I don't know why exactly I'm telling you this. You can't really use that information, but I just thought it was funny. Anyway, the place is not actually really downtown Beijing, but they have a metro system that is cheap and very easy to use, so it was a fine place to be. One of the things that's quite surprising to me is that there are not 9 million bicycles here.
There are 9 million bicycles in Beijing.
Even though Katie say that it's a fact.
That's a fact.
But then again, that's probably also changed since she recorded that song in 2005. Changes are happening all over China and, of course, especially here in Beijing. So, not many bicycles. We see a lot of beautiful cars. In fact, I would say that the average cars here in Beijing is at least as good as they are in the western part of Europe. And then I was expecting it to be a little bit more polluted than what we saw. People have told me that sometimes you can be standing on one side of the street and can't even see across the street because of the smog, but that was not the case. And they've done a lot to reduce pollution in the recent years. One of the things that they've done is that they made a law that says that no regular scooters that run on gas are allowed here. It's all electrical. Imagine that for a second. They make a law that says, okay, no more scooters from now. People have scooters that were all of a sudden completely worthless, and imagine the people who are selling them. Well, only in China. But electrical scooters, they don't make any pollution, and they don't make a sound. So they just come whooshing by you, and you really need to be careful not to get run over by an electrical scooter, especially at night, because a lot of them, they drive without the lights on in order to save power so they can make it all the way home. So quiet scooter, just come whooshing, completely dark, and that can be dangerous. We're standing at exit D at Shushiko Station, Shushiko Metro Station. This is where we're supposed to meet the group that we're going to the Chinese Wall. We bought this ticket from an artist that we met on Tiananmen Square. We were standing looking at a sign, speaking Danish to each other, and he came up to us and said, "Oh, where are you from?" I used to be 6 months in Denmark, so he understood a little bit of Danish, and we ended up going to see his exhibition. He's almost a finished graduate at the Art Academy here in Beijing. Lee, we were standing out here looking at the Tiananmen Square, and then you came up and said, "Are you Danish?" How could you tell?
I understand a little bit. Yeah.
You were in Denmark when?
Just short time. Yeah, 1 month.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. And you picked up a few words.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And then you said you're an artist. Can you describe the pictures you?
Some others. Yeah. Some others.
Oh, you're so good.
The first season in the whole life.
And in fact, I ended up buying one of his paintings. It's the first time I've bought anything besides a T-shirt or a shirt or a pair of shoes. But now that Clara is going home to Denmark, she can take my painting back to Denmark, and hopefully at some point I'll get a wall that I can put it on. Are you a full-time artist?
This is my art. Last year in the Art Academy of Beijing, nice. I was the art teacher. Yeah. Did you get to see some art when you were in Aarhus? Not really. Not really. But with the skin, some friend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How about you? What do you do in Denmark?
Radio.
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 Like, oh, I see.
Yeah.
This is your good friend?
No, my daughter.
Oh, your daughter.
This is
so beautiful.
Thank you.
So beautiful.
It's not finished one time, the less.
It's so detailed. No, that is not my girlfriend. That is my daughter. Please. And you told us that the Tiananmen Square is closed for 2 weeks.
Yeah, because of the conference.
There's a political conference.
Every spring, it's mostly for legislators. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, we can't go into the Mao Mausoleum because there's renovation.
Yeah.
So we came on the wrong time.
But less tourists.
Oh, yeah. I have always admired the beautiful Chinese letters. And Lee, as an artist, of course, he can use a brush and make it look really, really beautiful. So he, without expecting any pay for it, makes a beautiful piece of paper where he writes both my daughter's names, Amanda and Clara, and explains what it means. So Clara means?
Clever, lucky, and gentle.
Clever, lucky, and gentle.
Yeah.
And Amanda?
Amanda in Chinese means very healthy, romantic, and successful.
Wow. Very nice.
Here, it's a description of nice girl, beautiful outside with wisdom inside.
Beautiful outside with wisdom inside. Yes. Wow. Yeah. Also, he introduced us to this trip that some of his classmates are doing to the Chinese Wall, and because it's a little bit off season, the ticket was cheaper and quite a bit more cheap than what I found on the internet so far. So we decided to buy the tickets from him, and this is where we're going now. And that is going to be in the next episode of the Radio Vagabond podcast. It will be out in a few days, so make sure that you stay subscribed and join us as we go to the Great Wall of China. Also, we get scammed, we go to a Kung Fu show, and I talk some more to Lee. One of the things we talk about is Mao. He's still to this day the spiritual leader, even though he's behind the biggest genocide of all times.
Everybody will do something wrong, right, in your life.
So the Chinese people forgive him for that?
Of course. Yeah.
This episode is in part brought to you by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotels and hostels around the world. Hotels25.com is best price guaranteed.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe in iTunes or the podcast app on your smartphone. You can see pictures, watch videos, and read much more on the radiovagabond.com. Pale can be reached for interviews and public speaking gigs on mail at theradiovagabond.com.
My name is Pale Bo. See you in a few days.